Hello everyone, this is the Nameless One, and tonight we will be doing another Alicorn discusses about Dungeons and Dragons in context to the MLP fandom. I said D&D and almost launched into my usual before I get everybody to introduce themselves, I want to remind you, if you enjoyed this and would like to see more of it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. All that good stuff. As well as checking out the links in the description. And we're going to go ahead and get started. And Impulsive, I'm going to let you introduce yourself first, since you're the new guy here. So,
hi.
Who you are, what you do, as for D&D, like what your background with D&D is, and that should be good enough.
All right. Well, hi. I go by Impulsive on this neat little thing that we call the internet, and my actual proper start with D&D beyond just knowing it through cultural zeitgeist was actually playing it on a MLP YouTube channel. If anyone here is familiar with Ponies with Pockets, they did a bunch of audio dramas. They still do them, but they did a D&D show that I was on. So that's really where I started playing it. And no one should go find that and watch it because I'm embarrassed if that makes.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going and doing that right now.
Oh no. Good luck finding it.
Thanks.
Yeah, I've DM'd a few games. I've been a player in a few games. I've played a couple other systems like Pathfinder, and I tried doing Mutants and Masterminds once. That didn't work. There's one called Seventh Realm that I played. That was actually really fun, but I only played it once. And then, of course, I've dipped into GURPS.
Interesting. Fiction, your turn.
Hi, I'm Fiction, the fictional writer. I have been playing D&D for almost a decade now, and I've been a dungeon master for almost, I think, 6 to 7 years now. The most experience I have is with D&D 5e. I've played a little bit of GURPS, thanks to Nameless. I've messed around with Pathfinder, with the official Fallout RPG by Modifius. I mess around a little bit with Wasteland Warfare, also by Modifius. I think that's all the systems I have messed with, but I enjoy myself a lot of homebrew, and so I think this will be a very interesting piece for me, because I've never actually done anything with Pony D&D specifically, other than Nameless's GURPS campaign. So, fun.
You could always join the Sunday one. Nez, your turn.
Hello there. I am the Nez. I have been playing D&D for apparently 6 years now, almost on the dot. I started by DMing my first game, which fell apart because scheduling. And then I just kind of roamed around on the internet and found my current group, which actually is pony related and is not Nameless's group. And I've been hanging around over there for a while. I have opinions about that group, but that's for later, I guess.
Okay. And just to, since I will actually be able to have a lot of input for this one, I am the Nameless One. Hello, everyone. If you've probably seen some of my streams, other than the two that I do, or the one. I guess it would be two I do on Fridays. I do Heart of Darkness and Lost Memories, Second Chances, both of which are campaigns that I run. Heart of Darkness and Peacemakers of Equestria, those two campaigns are 5th edition campaigns that I've been doing for a few years now that are pony related. As far as how long I've done D&D, I've been doing D&D for over a decade now. And on top of that, I also I started DMing about 2 months into into. It's kind of a funny story. I'll get to that later, but yeah, I've done Pathfinder 1st and 2nd edition. I've done GURPS 4th edition, D&D 5th edition. I've dabbled with a few other, like Fallout Pen and Paper. I've been taking a look at the Cyberpunk system and the, what's it called? Hold on. Shadowrun. That's what it was. I've messed around with Starfinder, and I have both of the two systems that are pony related, and had the misfortune of playing the Fallout Equestria system that they created for Dead Trees. That was a train wreck. Anywho, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Before we get started, I'm going to lose all of the brain cells. Just, man, it really is a D&D stream. So I guess the first thing that I want to kind of talk about is the kind of an interesting lack of pony D&D, like actual Dungeons and Dragons, not because there's Pony Finder, which is now out of date to my knowledge. There's two systems. One of them was released by Renegade Games, and the other is Tales of Equestria. And then there's the unofficial Fallout Equestria system that is like, it's a bunch of people that apparently don't play their game, all saying, let's throw a bunch of ideas in a pot and then just make more books whenever we add more ideas. So
that sounds a healthy way to make a game.
Yeah, I've actually looked into that system, and that seems like what that is.
Yeah, when
I've heard of it.
When I first touched that system, it was like when I first found out about Fallout Equestria, and I was like, oh, I want to do that. That sounds like fun. And then, like, trying to run it, I realized in order to play it properly and actually be able to, like, do a game that everybody's not just, like, I had to go through 3 different books to find the answer to one question. I would have to rewrite their system, and I was like, I'm not willing to do that much work.
Yeah.
But I guess to start us off, we can start with a question that I feel like many of the people that have seen me doing Dungeons and Dragons on stream ask, and that's probably why ponies, besides the fact, you know, we're bronies. So, what do you guys... I promise, the audience doesn't bite. You can speak.
All right, so I think, honestly, just the land of Equestria is a pretty interesting, just fun little place. It's definitely it's one of those kinds of worlds where there's like something completely different and weird and wacky, like in every single spot. You can literally make anything up and just stick it in there, and as long as it doesn't, you know, obviously stick out against anything that already exists, you know, it could easily just fit in there.
What, I'm not supposed to stick a Balor in the middle of Canterlot?
I
mean, you could. I feel like there'd be some ponies who'd have some things to say about that. But you know, if you went, and yeah, I mean, it could happen.
Nez
It'd be
and
a pony Balor, but you know,
Nez and Fiction, what do you want?
I'm gonna fight the Balrog anyways. Might as well be, colorful horse go burr.
So
I,
here's a probably a better question. Nez, did you want to say something before I throw this out here?
why MLP and D&D? I actually came up with a good answer to that. Like, I personally feel like the world of My Little Pony and D&D don't fit very well, like tonally, because in My Little Pony you solve a lot of problems diplomatically. Like, they both explore, but like in My Little Pony you're a lot more likely to just talk through your problems, whereas in D&D it's a lot more dangerous and you usually fight your problem. However, they have a lot of the same monsters and like the same kind of tech level, so it's like a lot of hit and miss. It's just about making one fit for the other.
I am going to disagree with you there on the how you solve problems in D&D, because my first and one of my favorite characters I've ever played was a bard whose most powerful attack was a non-magical dagger, because it could literally like talk out of anything.
Yeah.
So like you can be diplomatic if you want. That's the beauty of it. You can just sit down and talk. Why, Goblin, are you attacking this caravan of merchants?
I'm just
That
more
actually-
playing towards D&D itself.
What it has said, I do actually kind of agree, because with Dungeons and Dragons, its progression is rewarded with like you reward players for violence, but like not too much violence. But at the same time, like the 20th level monk of the open palm wants to explode somebody. So
Oh yeah, no, I'm not saying that violence isn't the answer in D&D. It most certainly is in a lot of cases, because that's what's fun. I'm just saying it doesn't have to be, and that's the beautiful part.
That is, I will say that is true, but that is also where, as a DM, me personally, I start looking at other systems. If I want players to be less violent and feel like because I've always found that with players, they like to like use the toys that they get, whether it be an ability or magical weapon or magical item. And D&D very rigidly enforces the idea that, you bludgeon everything, compared to, say, GURPS, since apparently everybody here has actually dabbled in GURPS. I was expecting it from the two that I drag around, but I was pleasantly surprised to find out that you used it as well, Impulse.
So when I say I've used it, I mean I played a one-shot like 4 years ago with it, and no one else I know ever even wants to touch it, so I just haven't. So that's my experience with it. So if you want to get into an in-depth discussion about GURPS, I can listen to it. But so, yeah, I guess I was just more listing off things I messed with. Also, it's called 7th Sea, not 7th Realm. But I remember really enjoying that one, so...
Yeah.
This actually kind of brings me to the next question, though. For those of us that homebrew, and I know for myself that is literally everything I do. If you were to, because I know Fiction hasn't had the pleasure of homebrewing a equestrian campaign, but for those of you that are doing a campaign in Equestria, for whatever, like, if you decide to do one in the future or do one, like, doing one currently, what kind of tone do you think is better for Equestria and why? I will save my answer for the end. I'm going to let you go for first, Impulse.
Okay. I think that's a very interesting question. I think it kind of depends on how you want to look at what the implications of a lot of the things in the Friendship is Magic specifically, like, kind of world are. Because when you do look at some things that are not even just like IDW comics, but some of the things in the show, there are some things in there that are honestly kind of have pretty dark implications when you like think about it. Changelings are honestly just kind of really dark. Tyrix whole thing's really dark. Like you could, with not too much finagling, make something on like a darker, not like edgy, Cold Steel the Hedgehog, but you know, something that skews a little more like whatever. But I don't know. I think personally, if I was going to run one, I'd want it to be something more with the tone of like Scooby-Doo. Not like classic Scooby-Doo, but maybe like What's New Scooby-Doo, which had a very, you know, it had its like moments of, ooh, that was kind of intense. But, you know, it's still Scooby-Doo. It's still going on wacky hijinks and running into supernatural things and problems. And sometimes, you know, they're bigger or smaller than what they seem. But I think that's kind of a good tone, in my opinion, is Scooby-Doo. For this long-winded, whatever I just went through explanation.
Oh, don't worry about it.
But yeah, so yeah. And even then, it doesn't matter what tone I intend on going with anyway. It's going to turn into Scooby-Doo. That's what always happens. It does not matter. It will Scooby-Doo itself.
I would argue that that's just any campaign, no matter what the intended and like carried tone is. There is going to be Scooby-Doo moments of, well, here we go.
I think that just goes to show everyone the explicit, objective truth that the Scooby-Doo dynamic is perfection, and that is how all groups should be. And any deviation from that will only fold back into Scooby-Doo or be left out into the void to die.
So, let's see. We'll let Nez go next.
Okay. I have a really weird answer to this question because it really, like, your tone really depends on what you're going for as a person and not necessarily the pony part itself. So, like, what I did is actually kind of the nuclear option because I wanted I wanted a setting that was like dangerous with like internationary conflict, and I wanted it to be a lot more like dangerous than what Equestria would be like. So I just like didn't set it in Equestria. I did a pony-like setting inspired by MLP, but it wasn't Equestria.
Okay.
So I went with, like, if you wanted to, you could do like whatever you wanted, but that's what I did.
I mean, that's just kind of the point of D&D. You just do whatever you want.
Yeah, pretty much.
Fiction.
D&D.
Oh, were you gonna say something else, Nez?
No, I was just responding to what you were saying.
Fiction.
Yes. I really like the Scooby-Doo option, but I'm surprised no one actually brought up like genre. Because My Little Pony itself covers several genres, so like the tone kind of depends on like what genre are you going. Are you going for more of like the standard part of the show where it's kind of like parts mostly slice of life, a bit of adventure, but it's
majority
all pretty like
high fantasy.
Yeah, like light tone, you know, the stakes aren't that insane. And even when they get high, it's not really like a life or death. But then there are life or death moments in the show that just basically the show just becomes a shonen anime. Like, come on, the T-Rex fight. So, you know, you could do you know, kind of slice of life, small adventure, kind of campaign that has a much lighter tone. You could do like a shonen one. There's some. I think there's like a noir episode in the show, so you could do like straight up noir, which, you know, since it's MLP, it would be kind of like a more jokey noir rather than Sin City. But I think it really kind of depends on what you're going. MLP has a surprisingly amount of flexibility. Knowing my players, and like, say I got my main players, which are all non-bronies, if I got them to do one, I would probably do somewhere in the middle of like a lot is kind of like how the show does it, where it's you know, the small adventures and the like mostly slice of life, where it's a lot calmer, but like then you have that kind of like background villain coming up, and then it goes shonen mode. You know, just kind of going from like a softer to having these moments of like, oh yeah, we're powerful. It's time for a fight. Time to fight T-Rex kind of thing, and then it kind of just goes back. So it would be a very like mixed bag for me.
You know, if you wanted a really intense campaign, I just remembered these existed. You could just totally set a campaign in the alternate universe where Sombra's Crystal Empire is at war with Equestria.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
where,
just have
you
a
know,
straight out like war campaign.
yeah, no, I mean, and you know, you can't just say, "Oh yeah, that's my Pony War." It's like, no, Rainbow Dash has like prosthetics and like scars.
Yeah.
I don't know. It looks pretty
Oh,
rough. I'd imagine
Yeah,
it's pretty rough. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. That would be a fun universe to try and do it in. Another one is the one, as a big FOE fan, constantly make jokes about, where it's like the Wasteland alternate universe, where like everything goes wrong and everyone's just like, oh hey, that's Fallout Equestria.
The Changeling universe, where it's like changelings are everywhere, no one trusts anyone, could also be like a fun like one shot type deal.
Totally not writing
yeah, where
half
it's
of
all
these
like
down.
Yeah, like
where it's all like gorilla fighting in the jungle and stuff. Yeah, that
And,
could
like,
be a super fun one.
there needs to be like one player who like actually is a changeling, and like they need to work with the DM to like work against the rest of the party, like, or try to frame other people. That could be so fun.
Actually, that could be really fun.
Yeah.
Nameless, start setting these up.
Actually, I've done the evil changeling before. That one is actually a lot of fun. Do you have anything else you're in to add, Fiction, or is it my turn?
Oh, sorry.
No, you're all good. No, I think that's about it. But like, I don't know. I guess just final thoughts. I think it's like super like malleable. Super. You can do like what you want. You can fit a lot of stuff in it. Kind of thing.
I have Cameo yelling at me from the audience that she wants to be the changeling. So, for those of you that know me, you probably see this answer coming from a mile out. But I always go for grimdark tones, which, for those of you that don't know, and we're actually going to have more on this on a different podcast in the future, so keep an eye out for that. Grimdark is not always just cupcakes or Rainbow Factory. Those two are actually horror rather than grimdark. But the way that I always start my campaigns is like, generally they have like a more slice of life start, where it's like they're just kind of vibing, doing things. They meet Derpy, stuff like that, and then like the hook finally hits, where somebody gets kidnapped by a cult. They gotta go find out, and then they just find out this ancient horror has decided that now is the time to attack or whatever, and then it just goes downhill from there for them.
Derpy.
No, Derpy has survived every campaign she showed up in.
Oh.
Outlived many party members, actually.
Was that on purpose or is that just luck?
A little bit of both. I have told players that I've never had a player that dared to try, but I have told players that for the settings that, or like the versions of the settings that have Derpy and are not just absolutely fucked, like my Heart of Darkness one, for all intents and purposes, Derpy has divine protection. The Alicorns will come for you if you hurt Derpy. But yeah. But I prefer storytelling to be a lot darker, to be a lot grittier, to be all of the fights are challenging. I remember my Tuesday group that I don't stream. I hit them with their first combat and half the party almost died. Fun fact: a crit on a inflict wounds will absolutely body a level 1 wizard, even though it's a level 1 spell.
It's a wizard that's
And
expected.
confirm.
But I like the idea as a grimdark writer and just all around grimdark enjoyer. I like the idea of the settings having more to them, and somebody had asked me at one point, like, why I like grimdark so much, and it's because of the fact that if done properly, it's not that different from real life. You know, you have lots of suck, and then you have a bit of an upward trend, and then once you hit that peak of the upward trend, and it's even further downhill. So it's not that different from like reality, but there's still that upward climb that is like something that you can count on. Even if the upward climb does take a little bit of looking. Because I do have to occasionally remind players that they are the light in the setting. You know, trying to save the world, whatever. I haven't tried an evil campaign yet. So, my next question, though, and this one can be kind of controversial depending on how you view alicorns, but for the setting, I know what I do, but what would you guys do? Because I know that Fiction hasn't actually gotten to run a pony game yet, but what would you do with the alicorns? Are they deities? Are they not deities? Are they something that a player can be?
If a player wants to be an Alicorn, then they better hand me like a really cool thing, story, whatever. Like, hey, I have this character idea, and if things allow, I'd like to go in this direction. And you know, I go, oh heck yeah. I ran a similar kind of thing, I guess. I ran a Star Wars 5th edition game where I was like, no one can be a Jedi, but then someone came to me and went, okay, but here's this thing if it'll allow it. And I read this whole thing this dude came up with, and I went, yeah, I'll allow it. Because if it worked out, it would have been great. But as for what they are, I mean, yeah, I mean, it'd be deities. Why wouldn't they be? They kind of are that already, sort of, kind of.
I mean, if you look at the show, that's basically what they're treated as.
Yeah.
You know, you're an alicorn, thus you are automatically in charge. You're an alicorn, so we will treat you like we would treat royalty or a deity. We will swear by your name.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, so yeah, I think the people that don't think that, which if anyone in this podcast does not think that, sorry, I guess. Anyone that doesn't think that's coping, I think is what the kids say.
Cope, seethe, mauled, cry about it. You have many options.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I'm going to let fiction go now. We'll do it Nez's last, and then I'll say my piece.
Muhaha. So, as a fic writer, I've wrote about Alicorns before, and so I have a pretty solid opinion on what I think Alicorns would be in terms of letting the players actually play them. Yeah, it would basically be like deific level. In my most recent homebrew campaign, one of my players basically became a god, and so I think it would be very similar to that, where that would be a very like high-end, high-level goal for a player, and maybe we have like a short playoff after that. But Alicorns are just kind of OP. Like everyone just kind of like, or at least most like NPCs would just worship you on sight. On top of that, I assume being an Alicorn comes with like a big like power boost. And probably the only other way I'd run an Alicorn if it wasn't like that kind of like level of thing would be like a kind of demi Alicorn almost, I want to say. Like kind of, you have like the body and visage of an Alicorn, maybe like Twilight when she gets wings level thing, but you don't have the power there. So like Twilight right when she gets her wings. And that could be an interesting thing of like building power and experience and getting a lot like better. Or I just had this pop into my head. Or if we're playing something like, I keep falling back to FOE because FOE writer, but Alicorns in that are a lot less just like insta kill you on sight kind of thing. So that could be pretty good. Trying to think of any other way I'd probably do it. But in generally, I have to agree with Impulse entirely, because like both in the show and in my own like writing and how I write Alicorns and stuff, they are like deific, and at least in my writing, they are biologically immortal. So
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I could stab one.
Well,
if you stab one enough times, it will die.
I actually have something to say about that once it's my turn, but right now it's Nez's turn.
I mentioned before, I went Scorched Earth, and it's not. I don't even run a game in Equestria. I just like a pony-like setting, and the way I did Alicorns is like to become an Alicorn, because like they don't really show that very much in the show. They show Twilight and maybe Cadence if you count the comics, but like the way I did it is I have this one NPC that I wrote. They haven't showed up yet and I haven't used them, but like they were just like a bard, and they got like so perfectionistic, like trying to write a song about a group of adventurers that they were following along with, trying to like record the tale, that they just fell into this like fugue state in their basement, and they ran out of food and water, and they're just down there for decades. The song is still not complete, but it will put you to tears, even on a successful charisma check.
Beautiful.
It's like narrowing down on like, you know how like a cutie mark makes you good at one thing? I just dialed that up to 1,000.
Okay.
Like sure, he's like a magical Alicorn and he's got a horn, he can cast spells, but he doesn't know how to do that. At least not yet.
Was that a pause, or are you done this time?
Yeah, I'm done.
You have very long pauses, so I go to say something and I can't tell if you're done or not. You don't need to apologize. So for me, all of them are what I call living deities. So like you've got the metaphysical entity that nobody can touch, hear, see, smell, whatever. But then you have the ones where it's like Zeus, where every time something happens in Olympus, it's Zeus's fault because he's running around slinging his dick around. But by the way, if you didn't already notice, you are allowed to swear. Um, but
Oh, fudge.
with the
Heck.
living deity thing, they are exceptionally powerful and especially good at certain things, and will have lots of things like true sight, in like the ability to like be immune to like X thing. They get lots of legendary actions and legendary resistances because, fun fact, you can add more of those to a monster to make it more legendary. Ooh.
It's
But-
terrifying.
Yeah, actually, one of the stat blocks for an Alicorn that my party ended up fighting, he had 15 legendary resistances that he could expend during the course of a fight.
Legendary resistance to Peach Cobbler.
But also like things like damage immunities, resistances just in general. It's going to be a very difficult fight, but I'm also of the belief as long as you have the ability to do magical damage, not just mundane damage, you can kill an Alicorn. I've also told my players, because I am very much the self-insert DM NPC type. My characters show up in all of my campaigns, and I tell my players, you can go ahead and try and kill him. It's not going to be an easy fight, but you could try.
Look,
I
listen,
also
man, call me Lil Pip because I'm killing an Alicorn tonight.
I also set up. So this is a fun one. I set up subclasses specifically for the Alicorns in the setting as well. One of the ones that I've created for the because I was like, I looked at the pantheon. And I'm like, there are too many good gods. I need some evil ones, and like they don't have a god of death, so I created Plagueheart.
Egg heart.
Yeah, he's the god of death. He's also a lich, so he's also the god of undeath. So he is
What about the god of dying?
well, he's essentially the one that's in charge of all of that. But the idea was that it was something that the players could be able to like worship. That wasn't just like I am evil character, but like all I have is Luna, Celestia, and Twilight or Cadence.
Mm.
I don't give Flurry Heart. No Flurry Heart.
Wow.
She's still she is child. We never figured out what her thing was, and I'm not just going to give her her mom's thing. So, but
She's
has
goth,
dad's
obviously.
thing.
with Plagueheart, I just let them do Grave Cleric, because why rewrite something that's already there? But like, for example, I have a Cleric and Paladin of the Moon, which one of the major abilities that they get is the ability to dreamwalk. Which, if you haven't tried that in a campaign, holy crap, it is a lot of fun to let the players essentially play DM for a little bit. Just a little bit to like tell stories that they wouldn't be able to tell otherwise necessarily, because the character wouldn't want to like give everybody that information. But now you have a character that's a character that's able to look into their subconscious and go, oh, it's kind of a mess in here.
So in the Pathfinder game I'm a player in, my character, through a series of convoluted events I will not get into, she accidentally gained the ability to dreamwalk, and it is really fun as you're describing. Though it ended up being horrible for the party because there's a warlock, or it's not a warlock because they don't exist in Pathfinder, but it's a warlock who was in a horrible kind of relationship thing with their patron, and I went in there in like his dreams, and together we fought off and defeated the dream version of his patron, which ended up just completely and totally depowering the best DPS in the party. So
Real consequences for things that you do in your dreams.
I helped him through all of his psychological issues, and now it's like, oh wait, we did this while we were sleeping in a closet we locked in a dungeon. Whoops.
See, one of the things that I see pop up time and time again is like a level of distrust that happens when the party is like, wait a minute, you saw my dreams? And like, I've seen it devolve into damn near like PvP fights. I've seen it turn into like, we don't trust this character, and the entire party is like eyeing them the whole time. I've seen some parties that are okay with it, but one of my favorite things that I've done so far, and a couple of the audience members actually know what I'm about to talk about, is so there are lots of wild magic tables out there, and one of my favorite ones to use is a Curse of Strahd based one where it's Eldritch stuff. And one of the things that it does is give people nightmares, like the worst nightmares you can think of. And the way that I have the Dreamwalkers set up is like when they dreamwalk. So initially, the dreamer is in charge of telling the story, but a Dreamwalker can walk in and go, it's kind of a mess in here. Let's clean this up a bit. But the way that I do it is with the wild magic ones is it's there's 3 outcomes of that wisdom check, because I've only ever really used it in 5th edition. First outcome, they pass and they change it to whatever they're trying to like do to ease their companion's mind. They fail normally, and I just throw a curveball in there that makes it worse that they got to deal with. Or they crit fail, at which point the DM takes control. And I have traumatized a few players. So that one's also a lot of fun, at least for me. They said they at least enjoyed it afterwards, like after it was over. You know, that one of those like, oh, I never want to do this again on a roller coaster. But you know, that's part of, you know, session 0. You set those expectations, so it's like, oh, this is gonna be rough, man.
Yeah, my DM, he is very serious consequences whenever I do any of the dream stuff. My character's main thing that I've been building everything towards was using a bow and arrow. Lost an arm in a dream battle, and it was missing when we woke up. So good luck using a bow and arrow with one arm. So yeah, that's fun.
So I think you know, that question you just posted, Fiction, is exactly where I was going next, where it was like a fun D&D story from campaigns.
I'm reading your mind.
Apparently. So we'll let you go first.
Alright. Yeah, so I'm contractually obligated to tell this story anytime anyone asks me about D&D at all. And it's the story of the Tin Spoon. And it now just exists in every single campaign I've ever done, and every character I've ever made will eventually mention or have the Tin Spoon popped up. So what is the Tin Spoon? The Tin Spoon is a tin spoon. Thank you. In one of the first homebrew campaigns that I did, where I was DMing, my players are taken down on a giant like adventure all the way across the world to go like looking into some like artifacts and stuff. When they get there, they find this old like decrepit castle with like a little like hut outside, like shack hut. Instead of going to the giant, haunting, decrepit castle, they instead go into the hut and ask, "Is there anything in here?" I tell them no, and they're like, "Nah, there's gotta be something in here. Let me get a perception check." And so they roll like a 5, and I'm like, "There's nothing in here." And so the other player walks in and is like, let me see this thing. Another 5. The third player walks in, gets a nat 20, and I go, "Okay, fine." I open a random table, get a tin spoon, and almost immediately they almost start killing each other over it. It's a normal tin spoon. There's nothing special about it. It's a junk item worth 1 copper, if that.
That just goes to show the one thing that you expect them to ignore, that's the thing that they'll hyperfixate until they all die.
Oh, it gets worse.
Oh god.
So they go and explore the castle the entire time, bickering about who gets to keep the tin spoon. Even while they are fighting off a horde of the undead, and they have a magical artifact that starts to raise the undead around them, they still are talking about the tin spoon. Nothing else. And so when I'm explaining to them, hey, in the Empire and everything like that, these are these kind of artifacts that are not a part of the main like ethos and religion of this empire, because it's an empire, it's authoritative. You get caught with that, and you're not like, "Here, I found this wicked thing." You could get in some big trouble, and they're just not listening to me. They just don't care. They're talking about the tin spoon while they walk back to the boat. And so they get on it. They manage to hide it long enough. But in the middle of the night, one player gets up and is like, "I'm going to steal the tin spoon. I don't care about the amulets that could possibly get us all kicked off or killed. I want that spoon. I really want that spoon." And so it wakes up everyone on the ship. And during the scuffle, the artifact is thrown out, like in all view. And so I'm like, okay, well, you kicked off the ship. They take that. You get to keep the tin spoon. And they off without them. Yeah, and they're like, worth it. I got the spoon. And so they start marching north, which is like a couple of year-long walk north, because they were supposed to take the boat and stuff. It was like this big expedition thing, but now they have to walk. And so I'm like, okay, I'm not going to have them walk like 50 years in game just to get back to civilization. That's a bit too mean. I could do it, but I'm not going to.
Howard.
And so I have them. I know. I know. I have them walk into this small town, and they're still bickering over the spoon the entire time. That it has not stopped. And they meet this super setup knight. He's like, "Oh yeah, I can take you back to civilization, no problem. I have a teleport spell. Blah blah blah." And so one of the players decides, "Nah, I'm gonna steal his horse." Instead of get good with the knight, I'm gonna steal his horse. And I'm like, "Okay, sure. Do you stealth?" And it's like, "No, I'm gonna do it in front of his face. I'm gonna send a message." And it ends with everyone dying. Because everyone decided to chip in and fight the guy.
All over a tin spoon.
And so the tin spoon... Yeah, and so the tin spoon was lost to time until the next campaign, when everyone starts in a tavern, and on the wall they see a picture of two faceless men fighting over a tin spoon bathed in golden light. And now, even in my friends' campaigns who have started to DM, the tin spoon is a part of the lore. The tin spoon is a now like legendary artifact from the world's creation that just exists now. Like it's just a part of the lore.
Reality is that it still does absolutely fucking nothing.
Yes. It is just a tin spoon, but it's ancient.
So Impulse, you got something to.
Okay, do you want one from being a player, or do you want one from being a DM?
Let's stick to the
Whichever
DM
one's
ones
funnier.
for now.
Okay, so I think I briefly mentioned that I was DMing a Star Wars 5th edition, which is a Star Wars homebrew conversion of D&D 5th edition, because the actual current Star Wars tabletop game is stupid.
I've heard.
But so me, I already mentioned that. So I was DMing a group of, how many was it? It was 6 people. And to give a little bit of context, one of the players needed to was going to like boot camp for a bit. So we decided that their character was getting kidnapped by like the villains. So the party went on like the warpath to try to figure out where the villain's secret base was in order to like rescue their friend. Now, obviously, they couldn't actually rescue their friend until the person was back from boot camp, but you know, they were trying. It all went insanely well. One of the party members was playing a droid. I don't know how familiar anyone here is with Star Wars, but one of the party members was a droid. It's one of this droid in the lore of Star Wars is like specifically built to fight against Jedi and Jedi adjacent individuals.
So magma droids.
Yes, it was a Magna Guard. Yes. Though this campaign was set like 5,000 years after the original trilogy, so this was a Magna Guard that one of the other players like found on a junk planet and rebuilt.
I've been that kind of. The robot that everybody finds, it's like, we need this.
Yeah, so it did not understand more. So this was a chaotic evil droid, but the person that built it was lawful good. And so while he did not exactly agree with any of those morals or thought that it made sense, he went along with what the party did because that's what his creator thought. Anyway, so they infiltrated the secret base where they thought maybe their friend was. And mentioned earlier, there's one player that said, I want to try to become a Jedi Knight. And he handed me like this whole thing of, here's kind of what I'm thinking with all this and how that could all play into it. And I went, you know what? Yes, let's do it. So he ended up running into, okay, let me rewind a bit. He was one of the only survivors of this random group coming and wiping out like the small little town and village that he grew up in. And what this group was is they were hunting down people that could use the Force in order to either induct them into their own like army of dark Jedi to take over the galaxy, or to just kill them so that there wasn't a chance of them coming back. Well, he was the target of the raid, but he ended up getting away. But his best friend could also use the Force, and he was the one that was captured. So they're in this secret base, and he runs into his best friend, who he's thought's been dead for years, and now he's like this dark Jedi. And the two of them start having this big dramatic face-off as like all the security guards are like catching up with the party, and it's turning this big firefight. And it is going horribly for the party. And I mean, like, the dice hated all of them. The only thing they could do was not die, basically, but they weren't succeeding in anything.
That sounds about right.
So,
yeah.
So what happens is,
I'll just say the Jedi player, he was literally like about to die, and the Magna Guard player went, you know what? I have 1 hit point left. And what he did is he decided he was going to take over the fight and picked the one guy up, threw him over, and then turned around and managed to get a really devastating critical hit on the childhood best friend Dark Jedi. And then made this big dramatic, you all leave without me. I'll cover you. And they're like, no, you can't. They'll destroy you. And he went, and he turned around to his creator and said, this is killing Jedi is what I was made for, father. And then they went and had a fight where he immediately was then killed the following turn. But it was really cool. And the party did actually manage to get away after that. And I feel like I did a horrible job retelling it. But
You did alright.
yeah, but
No, that was amazing.
yeah, no, it because the campaign was like half jokey, half kind of serious, and it was just one of those moments where everything locked in to be like serious and like dramatic, and no one was joking and taking it all seriously and like role playing as well as they possibly could. And it turned into like an absolutely amazing, but like I said, people died, dramatic reveals, revelations, daring escapes, and in the end it was all for nothing.
Nez, your turn.
Okay, so you said you wanted to keep this to stories where we are the DMs, but sadly I don't have a lot of stories like that. Like my current group, basically what ended up happening is I got invited as a player, and then the DM is like, "Hey, I'm gonna be ambitious. I'm not gonna commit us to one really long campaign. I'm gonna get us to 5 in a row in sequence." So I've been stuck in that for a while. It's gonna pay off soon, but like, yeah, that's not a lot of. That took up a lot of my time.
This is the part where I tell Nez that's basically what he signed up for me as well.
I mean, fair enough, but that just means that I don't have a lot of DM experience specifically. I've got a setting. I've run some games, but like I've got a disaster story. Like I joined like halfway through a campaign and it was an absolute train wreck. It was like a different group. Like after my like real life group broke up, I found a pony group on Discord. And they were running they were like people. I started like hanging out with them, and it turned out they were playing D&D. So I was like, "Oh, I'll join you." I only know about how the campaign got to that point because the previous DM had basically a log of each session. So basically, how it started was like one of the players had never watched the show, so he was trying to run them through the show as a D&D campaign, and they basically derailed immediately, and they defeated Nightmare Moon along with like the Cutie Mark Crusaders. And like I don't think Twilight and the gang were even involved. And then they just basically went on this like wild adventure, like immediately not conforming the canon and just doing a bunch of stuff, like exploring. I think they killed a Yeti and then realized that its child could speak, and then immediately tried to like give the child a good life. And it's like, so I basically I join in like. After the DM had fucking left, and one of the players was now DMing, and a different player was running combat. So, like, completely, like, already, like, the train is already starting to derail. It's, like, and it's on fire. And that's when I join in.
Everybody's screaming.
Basically, that I make a zebra, and I'm given a motive where it's like, hey, someone's been messing around with these like ancient zebra temples, and I'm supposed to figure out who's been doing about that and whether or not I should like stop them. So I basically walk into this like house, like there's like corpses outside, like tons of corpses. I walk in and they're like interrogating this guy. Keep in mind the entire party is all children, and they're like interrogating this like adult. And I think they end up like killing him afterwards, and then they just leave. And then like before, like during all of that, like I asked, like, are you the guys who are messing with the zebra temples? They're like, yes. So I have to follow them. So that's the best first impression. Then we like fight a timberwolf in the woods. We go to the next town over. One of them pickpockets a blacksmith, and like my character's just witnessing all of this, like taking notes, like yes. I basically pass the DM a note like, hey, these guys are fucking dangerous. They need to be stopped. So I send a letter back home saying, hey, I need backup. and that it just completely collapsed after that. Like, we didn't really have another session. But yeah, it's like absolute train wreck. Like, how does that even happen?
So I'm gonna put my 2 cents in on that one. The first problem was they were trying to be the show, but a D&D campaign. That is not gonna work.
I mean, it could in theory, but it seems like they abandoned.
I mean, all it takes is one player going, I don't feel like doing this. I'm gonna kill the chicken. What chicken? That one.
Yeah.
I didn't say there was...
Especially if one of them doesn't know what's supposed to happen. Yeah.
Because with a D&D campaign, you don't want milestone events that have to happen in order for the story to continue properly. Yeah. Like, that's just... So for me as a DM, you want to set up like things that you would like to happen, but you also need to be prepared for all of that to go off the rails immediately. Yeah. So yeah, I could see how trying to reenact the show in a D&D campaign went horribly wrong.
Yeah. There's just like a ton of other factors, like it was just a massive train wreck.
And I mean, I would say that, like, I wouldn't fault the guy that hasn't seen the show. One of my players, Moon, never seen the show before. Not even cursory research to find out what's going on. He's never seen it at all.
I mean...
He's not the only one I've had either.
He was a min-maxer and kind of a murder hobo, so that probably didn't help.
Yeah, that would definitely be more of a problem than anything else.
Yeah. He was also the only one who knew how to play the game.
So I'm actually going to throw out 2 stories, because Nez brought up horror stories, and I've got a hell of a one. But I'm gonna go through the multi-part story first of Wind Striker. So Wind is good guy. Not always there when it comes to like paying attention, and doesn't always logic things out very well. The first indication of that we really got was when he got put in prison, and Ice convinced him to let Ice stab him to death on a hunch. They were in a time loop, and he happened to be right about the hunch. But Wind got stabbed to death, and that was the first indicator. So the next thing that happened, we still give him shit for this one. So I like ripping off wholesale various properties. So I had, with my Heart of Darkness campaign, I had an area that was basically BioShock, complete with Big Daddies. And the problem that they were facing was they were trying to communicate with what was essentially a little sister that looked like Apple Bloom, which in reality it was a monster and not actually Apple Bloom. But the Big Daddy... they had a Big Daddy that was supposed to be Big Mac, and she was small enough she could hide underneath him, but he was also big enough that logically you could technically crawl between his legs. And in order to communicate with the little sister, Wynn decided to crawl between the Big Daddy's legs in the middle of combat. So we still pick on him, saying that he just kind of crawled down there and said, "Step on me, Daddy." That one was funny. The next one after that, I described. So tell me what you think of. It looks like kind of like a long red candle with a black wick. What does that kind of signal to you? Don't think fantasy. Think just in general.
I've already heard this one.
I'm looking more for an answer from Impulse at this point, because I'm pretty sure I've told this story 100 times.
I'm so sorry. My mom called me, and I stepped away for a second. I came back like 10 seconds ago.
Well, when I say a cylindrical tube with a black wick on one end, not wax, but a cylindrical tube, it does kind of look like a candle, I guess.
Oh, it's dynamite.
Exactly. I described that to Wind at one point, and how it was like miles of suitcases in this area because it was based off of something I had seen. And I told him this, like, they're all set up, and there were essentially a bunch of time bombs stuck at 1 second, waiting for somebody to set them off. And so his first idea was like, because it had opened up a big crater, and that's where they were seeing him. He's like, I'm gonna fly down there and grab some. So vaporized his character and the character closest to the pit, because explosions kind of get funneled up and out. But if you're basically looking in over it, you're not going to survive either. So that was, I do what I call God calls, where they have a certain amount of times where they can attempt to not die, even though they should very much be dead. So he survives because of that. And then one of the latest ones. So I described to them a monster that all I really tell them is that this creature is blind, which means that and I do tell them this part, that they have acute senses in other areas. So, like, acute hearing. Wind steps into the hallway in this, it's a maze, steps into the hallway, looks down, and it's like, essentially does the "Hey, you guys" from the Goonies. I feel like I really dated myself right there.
Oh no!
And
I know exactly where this is going.
The rest of the maze, where it was supposed to be more of a game of cat and mouse, where it's like, oh no, I see it, run. No, it was actively hunting them the entire time. Outright killed one party member, and then 3 others blew through most of their god calls. One of them, all of their god calls, because of just how many times they got pulverized by this monster. Because they were equipmentless, they were unable to use most of their magic, because the idea was they were trying to make it through these mazes without all the cool toys they earned. So yeah, I can't think of if there's there is another one. So this is the most recent one, and here's the shameless plug for those that want to see how this one ends. That actually should be happening this Sunday. But his character is a royal guard from essentially ancient times for this setting. It's a lot of time fuckery because of a magical, like, mist. And he decided that it was a great idea to, when they saw Nightmare Moon and, like, saw that Nightmare Moon was executing people for being followers of Celestia, they went to a tavern, and initially they went back to their rooms to start talking about it, and then realized one of the other characters who didn't want to necessarily be there for that had gone out to the main part of the inn. So they go into the main part of the inn, and one of the guards they saw at the execution was sitting at the bar, and he begins loudly talking treason. Which, of course, one of the other players initially starts trying to like quiet him down, and then just starts talking to him about the treason as well. And then he gets arrested. The bard, one of the bards of the party, was actually able to like get the one of the players free, but Wind is still there because he also got turned into a vampire. So, yeah, that is the story of Windstriker.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
may be
boy.
dead next session.
Yeah, I was there for that last one.
Kill him.
I feel like Wind is like someone who's making a Fallout build and put their luck at 1 and then somehow got a -1 debuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it can feel that way.
He also has a really low perception, and he's just not aware of what's going on around him.
That's the best combo.
Yeah.
As to the horror story, when I first started out, everybody like there were quite a few people that wanted to be on the campaign for the sake of like being on the stream and the people that I had on there, because at one point I had Sawtooth Waves as one of my players, and this player they went by Fluttershy. I should have seen the red flags the moment I got the character concept, and their character concept was, I want to be a siren that the party has to teach friendship. And a pre-established campaign, by the way. So there's already a story well underway. I just needed more players to make sure that I could, since it was streamed, I have to have a buffer of players so that I can actually do the games. And so I was like, no, you have to make like a reasonable character. This is the list of races that I will make homebrew for. So they do that. They pick a hippogriff, and I put their character in a cage at a carnival of that was like it was essentially a front for a kidnapping ring that was selling the kidnapped ponies as sacrificial fodder for a massive ritual that was going to be releasing the BBEG. And the party frees the hippogriff, who then attempts to flee the party, and the party, knowing that it's a player, is essentially just like, nope, you're sticking with us, come on, let's go, and drag this hippogriff around. Now, skip forward a little bit to where they find the actual BBEG. This player has decided that they will dual-wield campaigns simultaneously. And so they're popping in and out, and the point that I was going to kick them out for anyways is the players had just gotten done seeing that I think it was 3 of the main 6 were chained to a wall, drugged up, and in no way were able to help the party at all. And this person comes in not even asking like what's going on, and just is like, maybe we should just get the main 6 to fix all our problems. Which, as a DM, I will always find ways to make sure that the main 6 being heroes are indisposed for whatever reason.
They
Because
just don't feel like
yeah.
it today.
well, there's no story if you go find the heroes of the realm to fix it for you. Yeah, you went and got Twilight. You're now about as useful as Cadence.
Twilight be
Yeah.
like, just do a friendship lesson, guys.
I
It's a
mean,
friendship lesson.
they're not quite as useful as Cadence. It's more like Spike in that case.
But yeah, moral of that story, pay attention to whatever your DM is telling you, and don't try to play 2 separate games of D&D simultaneously. That is rude to both DMs.
Yeah.
Anywho, I'm gonna ask a controversial question. Level 20
boy,
or no?
controversy.
Uh,
Ooh.
This is
I-
specifically for Dungeons and Dragons, by the way.
Sorry, you go first.
I can take this first. A level 20 in D&D is like that. Like the power scaling D&D, like levels 1 to 4 is like, oh, you saved the blacksmith's daughter. Like 5 to 10 is like you're saving the village. Like 11 to 14, I think, is like saving the kingdom, and then like 15 onwards is saving the world. So like level 20 is like you're ready to fight gods, like not actual gods, but like you can basically face anything. You're like crossing planes and like fighting stuff in the astral sea or what have you. It's like that is like a power level that is like not reasonable for most stories. Like 90% of like stories in media could have been solved by a single level 20 PC, not let alone a whole party of them. So I feel like, sure, like if you level up that high and you still have stuff to do, go ahead. But that's like taste. Some people go past 20. That's my 2 cents on it. Like I don't.
Okay. I will say that 5th edition has some pretty awful epic level rules. That's why I don't do it. But Impulse, your turn.
I have never played anything that went past like level 12, so I don't think I actually have a proper opinion on this.
Okay. Yeah. What about you, Fiction? You got any input on this?
Oh boy, DM time. Yeah. It depends. Do you want your parties being multiplanar demigods who can just fight any god that they want? If no, I believe it's level 13 as your cap. If yes, then level 20 all the way. The highest my players have actually gotten, I think, is level 11 or 12. And that's mostly because of just like the campaign falling apart, so we all wanted to wrap it up. But the way me and my group play is that almost without exception, we're just like, let's just go as far as we can. But generally speaking, unless your DM has some kind of story planned for it, going past level 13 is kind of like a death of the narrative, and you can just do what the fuck you kind of want. Because like level 13 is like demi-plane and stuff like that. So you just outright become gods the higher you go at that point. So I can't say no, because I love the idea of getting to level 20 and just rocking up to like some deity's house and being like, hey yo, I want your couch. But in terms of like a narrative thing, like the current campaign that I'm writing is likely gonna cap out at like 13 or 14, and basically just be like, by the time they get to like all that extra planar power, that's basically gonna be like the cap end to the campaign, or like the epilogue and stuff, because they're just going to be so powerful enough that like they're going to be fighting gods. And I kind of have something like that like in mind, but it's not like strictly laid out, so that's more of once you reach it, do you guys want to keep going kind of thing in my book.
So I'm gonna take my turn now. My opinions on this, there is kind of two-part. First off, the argument that I hear for it is that D&D is not made for it, which I 100% do not agree with that. You have monsters that are made for high-level parties that, because everybody looks at it and goes, oh, it's CR 18 or whatever a beholder is. A beholder is not it's not summed up by its CR. If played properly, a beholder has a complex that is ready for you to come charging through all of the walls with a spork in your left hand, a spoon in your right hand, riding a laser beam wielding T-Rex with a pom-pom on its tail. And if you don't happen to have the pom-pom on its tail, it's got a plan for that too. Like, there is a lot to D&D that if you play the monsters and the creatures properly, as they're supposed to be, because like a Tarrasque, for example. Tarrasque, it's supposed to be a not so much of a monster as it is a force of nature. Like, even rules as written, they dumb down the monsters too much to like make them an actual threat. Because I know that a vanilla party at level 15, with the proper setup, can basically one-turn KO a Tarrasque. And this
a
is
solo wizard can.
Yeah. So what I tell most DMs, especially because if you've been to HarmonyCon, I do what I call DM notes. Every time I get asked about level 20, I tell every DM the same thing. Adjust things. That is, you are the end-all be-all of the rules, so if you want to go for level 20, you're going to have to do a lot of adjustment, because eventually you'll get to that point where the book says it has 300 health, but you have 3 party members that can do over 500 damage in one turn reliably, so you're going to need to adjust things. For example, like, yes, Soul Tenebris was a deity, but when I created the stat block for him, I started his health at 5,000, and I would only move it up if I needed to, but it would never go back down. But it was not a hard, he only has, because I had a barbarian, which a barbarian, yes, they can do a lot of damage in one turn, but he was doing over 400 damage reliably in one turn. And then there was the spellcasters. So level 20 is definitely something that, yes, I do agree with, like, the you do need to be prepared for that, because if you are just running a module, they're going to body the module if you give them level 20. You will run out of content.
Oh, hell yeah.
But if you're making your own campaign, just adjust things. Don't do the thing that I did and go, ooh, this Elder Evil thing looks really cool. Throw an aspect of Atropos at them and watch in horror as it almost kills the entire party because it just says no to death sometimes.
Yeah.
So I don't believe that level 20 is something that, because I see so many DMs on the internet, like YouTubers, going, it's not meant to be played, don't do it, it's not worth it. I also see people going and don't start at level 1, which is also something that I believe is not very smart to do, especially when you have new players.
Like,
Yeah.
the people who are saying don't start at level 1.
DM.
Sorry. The people who say
go ahead.
start at level 1, I feel like assume that you have a party that knows what they're doing. Like, level 1 is like, the whole point of level 1 is that you don't get all of your class abilities immediately. So you have to like unlock them, which like eases you into it.
Yes.
But like starting at level 3 is a really good default if everyone knows what they're doing.
The very first campaign I ever DM'd was homebrew with monster races starting at level 20. So if that tells you anything about my campaigns, that that was the worst decision I ever made on a campaign, other than lethal nat ones. Don't do that. Only if it absolutely makes sense, but otherwise, don't do that.
Yeah.
You learn things as you go.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There's one thing I'd like to add that I actually thought of while you were
Ranting.
like giving your point. Yeah, sure. Given your point, ranting, it's all the same. What's it called? DMs, specifically to DMs, do not underestimate the ability of any creature, no matter what it is, but also don't underestimate your players, because a Tarask is an anti-magic force of nature. It, by default, takes like half damage and has spell reflection from magic. And you can one turn it with a single wizard. But a group of kobolds, if done correctly and done how kobolds would do it, or even just regular goblins, could kill an entire party of level 5 adventurers or higher.
Oh, so easy.
I have seen a group of goblins body a 8-man party of level 5 players before. Easily.
Yeah.
Also, to the players, don't shit talk a enemy if it's still alive. That is somehow always with unnerving consistently when the enemy crits you back. I've had it happen both in person and over the internet.
Yeah, the moment you start shit talking is the moment your enemy starts only rolling 20s.
It's not even like a DM thing at that point. It is so weirdly consistent on how that happens. Were you going to say something, Impulse?
It's always fate.
Oh, I'm agreeing that don't do that. Unless you're tired of the character that you're playing and you want to roll a new character, then do it all day.
But I also like level 20. Give them like a entity for like the BBG. Give them something that's trying to become a god, because even that can be powerful enough without being a god. Especially if you're going for like a save the world type campaign. D&D at its core is a power fantasy type game. My recommendation, if you don't want the power fantasy of D&D or Pathfinder, go look at some other systems. Try some new things. There's different flavors out there.
I also have a comment on that. If you don't want to do the power fantasy, but you don't want to learn a new system, pick up the Dungeon Master Guide and just read it, because it has a whole section on doing other tones and tropes. Like, it has a Grimdark section. It has alternate rules for everything.
I would actually go out on a limb and say more look at other people that are doing the same thing on YouTube, where they're doing gritty rules.
That's
because some of the rules in the DMG aren't great, and you'll find at least a dozen people that have remade it in a way that it makes more sense.
Variant encumbrance.
That is true.
Yeah.
Everyone hates on that. Me and my players do not get that. We don't get the hate on variant encumbrance.
I don't like it because that's so go-to everyone has.
Because we've played with it like so many times, and it just has not been an issue.
Before I ask the final question of the night, we're going to go ahead and we seem to only have one question from the audience. So for those of you that are listening in, now is the time to spam as many questions at Ice as possible so that he can rush to get them in the forum while I'm reading off and answering questions.
Overwhelm him.
Make him work.
Do it now.
He's
Rush
too
him.
comfortable
Make
over
it the
there.
Normandy of questions.
Anywho, this is kind of a two-part question. Just No S there. Who here has actually played the Tales of Equestria system? That's the word I'm looking for.
I have not.
I have not.
I watched the Critical Role one shot, and I made a character sheet to fight the min-maxer guy from that group I mentioned before, but I never actually played it.
So
I also watched the one shot.
I have not played it either, but I do have opinions on it. It is far too simplistic. If you're getting a bunch of little kids and you want to get them into D&D and stuff like that, this is a good place to start. Other than that, though, it's not going to fit most of what you need to have a decent time with adults playing tabletop role playing. This is why I prefer homebrewing, why I want to eventually create a supplement. So that I can give the world the Pony 5th edition D&D rules that they deserve. But other than that, there's not a lot that really is good for that system. It tries to lean a little too heavily into the friendship is magic kind of mechanics without actually having meaningful mechanics for it.
Yeah.
I've got a couple more questions that have come in. I caught the one by Cameo before Ice could throw it in there. This is a really good question, actually, because of people playing. This actually fits really well with the topic. For DMing games based on established shows, would you ever allow people to play established characters? So, having a party play the main 6 or whatever.
Conditionally. It depends on what you're doing. For example, if I was running a campaign, say, in the Crystal Empire, and it's just fighting Wendigos or something, I wouldn't let you play as, say, I don't know, a Luna, because why would she be over here? I wouldn't want you to be, a Dr. Hooves either, because, if you're going with the headcanon that he is the Doctor, then he probably wouldn't be killing things anyways. And most of the time, if you're in a party, you probably don't want pre-established characters anyways, unless everyone is. I was actually setting up a one-on-one in GURPS where a friend of mine really likes Celestia, so I was going to let him play Celestia, but I was making games specifically around that. So I'd say that's something you can do, but it's not. You have to work for it.
I'm sorry, I will disagree a little bit with you there on if Dr. Hooves is the Doctor, he wouldn't be killing anyone. It depends on which Doctor you're basing him off of.
Yeah.
If we're going 7th Doctor, then he's already probably planned how to kill everyone in the room before he's even walked into it.
Yeah, I haven't watched a whole lot of Doctor Who. I'm familiar with 9, 10, 11, I think.
They kill people in those and they talk about the Great Time War where they became the War Doctor and killed a lot of people.
Yeah, I saw that.
The Doctor's wild.
The Doctor has the 10th.
Before we get too derailed into the Doctor Who lore, because I know how deep that runs. Let's let Fiction answer on. Or did you already answer, Fiction? I can't remember now. Okay.
I have not. No. But the doc. No. So let's see. I would probably do it as a like the whole party plays established characters, or the vast majority plays established characters, and the rest are like companions, but everyone is under the assumption or like understanding that like, hey, these are established characters. You know, they have like a place already in the world. If it's minor established characters, like, you know, background characters or characters who, you know, aren't the main six, like, oh, I want to play as Vinyl, or I want to play as Octavia or Derpy, then yeah, that's fine. Because, you know, they're not these like beacons of you know, the show being around them, besides like any solo episodes. But like any of the main characters or anything like that, I would have to have the group be on kind of like in agreement, being like, okay, yeah, we understand that it's, you know, main characters and all that. But I would try and work to have those, like, anyone who doesn't want to play as a main character be in there. Like, you know, you don't want your players feeling left down, so that's why it's kind of like a yes, no, have to kind of like try to find a balance, because I don't want, like, you know, these four players all playing, you know, four members of the main six, and then Steve over here playing his OC. I don't want Steve feeling left out.
Okay. Impulsive.
What could the question exactly
Do you need the question re-asked?
yes.
Would you allow players to play established characters in a setting that has them? So, for example, in our case, like playing like one of the main six or something like that in MLP, or if you're doing like another, like if you're doing like the general D&D setting, like having somebody that plays like Brizit Doerden or Raceland Majir as characters from D&D lore.
No.
I just remembered something that's kind of on topic. Like,
Uh
there's nothing wrong with playing as a character that isn't from the world you're in. Like, for example, if I wanted to be, I don't know. Sorry.
Can you let Impulse finish? Thank you.
oh no, that's it, and just no. But I guess if you wanted something a little more in depth than that comedic one word answer. So I think I don't mind if people make characters that are clearly inspired by pre-existing characters, but if someone walked up to me and went, I want to play Pinkie Pie, and that I would be like, no, because I want to see people having some amount of like creativity from the get-go, and not just I'm gonna be Pinkie Pie because Pinkie Pie. It's like, yeah, you could make Fuchsia Tart, who's someone who really likes get-togethers and enjoys the company of friends. Like, that's fine. That's technically a different character, but I think unless it's something where everyone's like, let's play a game where we're the main six, that is different. But I feel like allowing people to just be characters is kind of counterintuitive to the entire character creation process in a tabletop RPG. I don't know. I guess that's my thoughts on it.
Okay. What were you going to say, Nez?
Basically, the future tart fig.
Ah. Okay. So my answer is absolutely fucking not. Because of a multitude of reasons. I very much agree with like the what Impulse said. The other problem, though, you run into is if you're playing an established character who has recorded feats, abilities, and powers, what's gonna happen is that you're gonna have a player that's like, oh yes, in this episode of this show, this character did this, so I should be able to do that. Whether or not there was extenuating circumstances involved doesn't matter as much. But it's one of those. It's just like if you play that character, you've got like a pre-established set of abilities, pre-established power level, stuff like that. It's like trying to do an anime type game set in the world of One Punch Man, and one of your players is like, I'm gonna be Saitama. That just invalidates the entirety of the rest of the campaign because he literally can one punch everything. And is damn near indestructible. The other problem, and I've actually run into this before, the brief stint that I did trying to do Fallout Equestria through the Dead Tree system, was that you run into those people that are lore purists that have an absolute meltdown when something is not accurate enough. And that's just not fun to deal with. And I've seen people get so salty about stuff like that it breaks out into player versus player, which kind of leads me into a question that I didn't even think about asking that I'm going to ask now. What is y'all's stance on player versus player? That is, like, is it something that you don't allow? Is it something that you allow circumstantially? We'll start with Impulse.
I think it's fine under certain circumstances. There is, I'm going to use an example as a player. In the Pathfinder game I mentioned all the way at the beginning, that warlock character that I accidentally depowered. In character, we've been at odds practically the entire time because he is like evil, and my character is good, and I'm literally following a deity that is very much an if you find evil, you kill it. So, but the DM does not allow PvP.
Oh.
But NPCs still call us out on working together. So it's a weird case of player versus player. Circumstantially, I think is fine. I think if it adds to the characters and to an overall narrative, it's fine. For things like that, I don't accept things like it's what my character would do in a murder hobo-y sense, because that's just stupid, and I will put my foot down and say no, which is something I think DMs need to learn how to do.
Yes, you can absolutely tell them.
You can tell people no. You can tell people no, and you should do so liberally unless it's going to be cool, funny, or both.
A friend of mine actually described it. DM has an extra die called the 1DM. It defeats all.
Yeah, so it's willy-nilly. No, because then it's just like, as a DM, it's boring if it happens all the time because you're not involved in it. The other players aren't involved. It's just two players having an argument and throwing dice at each other, basically. Like, you're pretty much sitting like anyone else, unless they decide to jump in, is not a participant in that. Like, that's not fun. But again, like circumstantially, like in terms of like character, narrative, whatever, then, which I know I just said that if someone said is what my character would do, I would say no.
Well,
But it's also but there's also like it's a gradient.
there is a difference between what my character would do and we've all discussed this and want to do the thing.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it depends on the circumstances. Basically, will it add to the game, or will it detract from the game? Which is ultimately, I think, how the entire concept of DMing should be viewed: as will it add to the enjoyment of everyone at the table, either from a narrative, a fun, a cool, etc. viewpoint, or is it going to detract from the fun, the narrative, the cool, etc.?
So this is where I ask, did he basically just voice all of our opinions simultaneously, or does anybody else have anything they want to add to that?
I've got a few things I can add.
Okay, Nez, you can go next then.
When you boil it down to it, PvP is just any interaction where the players are at odds with each other, not necessarily a combat related, but just when they're in conflict. One example I have of PvP isn't combat. What ended up happening is we are thrown into like an ambiguous kind of campaign where it's like, okay, there's like these three factions fighting each other, and we have to pick one and help them. And two of the players, one of them was me because I made a really weird character, just weren't like involved with the decision making. We were just like neutral. And then the other two were very strongly opinionated, and they each chose a different faction. So we would go along with one faction, and the other one would sabotage us. Along with the other, and then the first guy would sabotage us, and it wasn't great. Like, what you need to do in these like that in that case, it was that case of we needed to communicate and actually sit down and decide on something. But I think the DM didn't like us sitting down too long, so they kept pushing us forwards. It was a communication issue, but like I feel like PvP in a nutshell is a communication thing. If you want to have PvP, you need to establish what you're going for ahead of time and make sure the other person is okay with it. So, for example, if you wanted, if you had an evil character and a good character in the same party, a good way to resolve that is to like talk out of game and be like, hey, I'm a paladin of such and such, and your character is like defies my beliefs, and there's going to be conflict there, and you can like come to terms with like how that's going to come. You can like kind of plan it out like roughly, and it'll probably go much more smooth than just angrily throwing dice at each other.
Yeah, my experience with that is mostly when people actually start throwing hands, because the subterfuge and sabotaging I strictly control all of that kind of stuff. Players know that they can come to me if they want to do that kind of stuff. But hold on. Excuse me, I had to sneeze. It's one of those, like, if hands are thrown between party members, it needs to be something that you actually like verify everybody's cool with, and then if that's the case, try to keep it at least somewhat brief. But if it's just randomly player is mad, starts throwing hands, that's not okay. Because I've had that happen. Well, the one instance that I've seen it happen, like I've actually there's two instances. One was a pony game, and one was a game I was a player in. The one I was a player in, I was on watch for the party, and I rolled a critical fail because it was GURPS. But we essentially had like every last party member had wings and could fly. So we ended the stampede that went through our camp didn't end up being a problem, but the edgelord Fallen Azamar decided that that was going to be the moment that he used to, because I failed. His exact reasoning was because I failed the perception check. He was going to punch my character for it, try to start a fight, and then the other instance was Wizard wasn't paying attention, dropped Cloud Kill on like half of the party, and the Warlock tried to pick a fight over it. So that stuff, that is uncontrolled PvP always leads to hurt feelings. Fiction, anything you wanted to add?
Generally speaking, I kind of agree. Like on the most part, I actually had to confront this question at the end of my campaign that I was DMing, because it basically turned into a 3-way free-for-all. The way the players handle it and the way I handle it turned out very good, and we were all happy with the ending.
Is this the tin spoon?
No, this is not the tin spoon. That was years ago. No, this is over the Crown of Ascension, and it's how one of my players became God, or became a god. But like I've DM'd over like a lot of PvPs, one where it was a part of the story and some where it wasn't. And so basically the way I've like come down to it is if someone just starts PvP out of nowhere or starts being like really aggressive narratively, which I personally would not call PvP. When I think of PvP, I think of the gaming term, so combat. But if people are going at odds with each other, like what would be verbally or narratively, basically I will sit and let it go for a second and basically be like, okay, can this make a better story? Is this like the party kind of infighting arc? Can we start that, or is that appropriate? And if it isn't, or if it's being done over like really dumb reasons that shouldn't be done, and especially if it's like not character driven, if it's just a player having a problem with another player, I just grab them by the scruff of their necks and I go, hey, no. Like I don't even entertain them. I know some DMs who are very hands off would be like, but that's railroading. I don't care. When two players come to like brawl, if it's going to negatively affect the players themselves instead of just be like a in narrative thing, that's way too far, and that's when you gotta step in as the DM, as kind of like the referee or the goalie. So like for me, it's very heavily conditionally. Like it has to meet like a certain criteria in my head of, is this going to be fun for everyone? Are people going to get mad at each other? Kind of stuff like that. So honestly, it's all up to the situation. For any newer DMs, I would just recommend having a blanket no if you're like not used to dealing with that.
Okay. So we're going to wrap this up with one last question. This one's from Ice. He is asking, yay or nay on legendary resistances as a mechanic?
Uh,
I'm going to let Nez go first.
Personally, the problem with higher level D&D is that there's a lot of like conditions you can do. Like, for example, if you have this one boss monster, and they're like really strong, and they can like they're like strong enough to fight the party, but you cast Hold Monster, and now the monster can't do anything, and you can just like set up and like beat the shit out of it. Like, that's what Legendary Resistance is for. It's for when you have one monster, and you need some way of negating instant wind spells. Because a lot of spells like Hold Monster have like singular targets but are really strong, and they're usually balanced around there being multiple enemies to hit you and break your concentration. But if there's just one boss monster, then they need Legendary Resistance if they want any chance of not having that happen.
So, yay.
Yay.
Impulse.
It's cool. You don't have to use it, but it's really cool when you do and you use it. When it's used right, it can be cool and frustrating in a hopefully good way, because it's all about telling a good story, and sometimes that means that a thing doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Or the thing fails at the most inopportune time.
Yeah. Fiction.
Or maybe they decided, or maybe the villain, say your big bad evil guy's like, oh yes, your basic spell of confinement has worked until you bring me before the king for my imprisonment. Mwahaha. I don't know if you would even want to use it like that, but I guess you could do like dramatic timing on it.
You know, that is an idea that never occurred to me, and my players are going to hate that you ever brought that up to me.
Well,
Anyways.
if they can do it, it doesn't. I don't think it says it has to happen right at that moment.
Even like with Hold Monster, though, like if you think about it, how do you tell if it's actually worked other than they stop moving?
Exactly.
Good question. Perhaps a perception check or whatever, but like the players wouldn't.
I mean, Hold
Like,
Monster, it's
They
entirely
wouldn't
invisible.
know whether or not it worked.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, so like
Yeah, they like wouldn't innately know it, so they would have to be suspicious that they were going to like try and trick them in the first place, but like that usually never happens during combat. So
Unless
it's a good,
you have the most
it's a good
paranoid
bait,
players of all time.
which is possible, yes.
Fiction, your turn.
Yeah, I love them. Like, it's a great narrative device. It's a great device of showing off how strong your bad guy is, of just basically slugging shit off while they like slowly march towards your like players, and they're just like, well guys, we're gonna die tonight. So like I think it's great, everything from gameplay to narrative wise. It can be used amazingly. It can also be used poorly if you don't know what you're doing, and that was me when I started DMing.
Okay. And I think my answer is obvious with my BBG Soul Tenebris having 15 of them. It is an amazing way for, like Nez said, getting a boss more of a chance. That's also why I like legendary actions as well. And like Fiction said, you have to use them properly. Don't legendary resistance everything. because then it's just like you've invalidated the existence of half the casters. But like if it's something that would be very like vital to keeping the boss doing what it's doing, use it then. If it's something that also keep in mind, how intelligent is your boss? Is your boss a spellcaster? Would they have the ability to tell what's about to happen? If it's a spellcaster, do they have counterspell? It's all fun and games until the lich counterspells the healing spells.
Yeah.
Counterspell prestidigitation.
Yeah, that's the most.
Counterspell Revivify.
Counterspell Mage Hand.
Yeah, counterspelling a healing spell is the most like. You ever just have that moment where you know someone just hates your guts to the core? That's what counterspelling a healing spell is. Like, that's how you know that your DM wants you dead.
They're gonna look at me with like absolute hatred and like murderous intent in their eyes, and I'm gonna be looking back with like my own eyes sparkling and the biggest shit-eating grin on my face.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how you should do it. Wanna know what the most devious like homebrew rule that I saw one day was? It was that you can counterspell any magical item because it's magical. So counterspell was also like a no magic for you, which makes potions of healing inert.
Oof, that's a rough one.
It was such a dumb homebrew, like viewing it, because it's so like it's way too strong that way. But just imagining like you're taking like a greater healing potion and your DM just says no.
I chucked the necklace of fireballs. Counterspell. Shit.
Yes.
Throws random bead.
I throw the entire necklace at once. How many fireballs is it again?
To cap us off for the night, I think I'm gonna go ahead and do this. Rapid fire. Your favorite like table rule that you use at your table. Impulse, you first.
Favorite table rule. Oh gosh, I'm caught off guard with some of them I've used so much that I don't even remember if they're actually my rules or not. Come back to me.
Okay. Fiction.
To drink a healing potion is a bonus action. If you don't have this rule at your table, you are dead to me.
Okay. Nez.
I don't really have a lot of homebrew. I'll just say the rule of cool because I give my players enough shit. If they have like good reason why they should be able to do something, I'll let them.
Impulse.
All right, I got it. Crying is a free action.
Okay, that one's pretty good. I like that one.
That is the best answer.
I love that.
For me, mine is if you're a wizard and you're drunk and you try and cast a spell, wild magic. Fuck you.
Oh, that's a good one.
Other than that, everybody, if you enjoyed that, would like to see more of it, then don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring the notification bell, follow. I don't know why I said follow. That's Twitch. We don't Twitch anymore. Make sure you check out the links in the description as well. Down there is my Discord if you want to hang out with the people on the lovely people on this podcast, the players in my campaigns, myself, as well as the rest of the community. That is free to enter. If you want to support the channel, there's the I keep forgetting that I have it on Discord, YouTube, and Patreon. So any of those three are greatly appreciated, especially my priest tier patrons. Cameo Shadowness, Scarmex, Trailblazer, and Ice Crystal. For those of you that would like to be able to sit in on the actual podcast itself, as well as we tend to hang around a little longer after the podcast just to shoot shit. If you want to be able to listen on that as well, ooh, excuse me, then the $5 tier for Patreon and any other of ways of monetarily supporting me will get you access to that. Other than that, we will see you tomorrow for, hopefully, Lost Memories, Second Chances. Sunday for Heart of Darkness. And then next Friday, we will be doing the Creator Roundup. I believe it's Animators next. Other than that, everybody have a great evening. Don't forget to drink water. And I don't care how big the room is. I cast Fireball.
Be there or be square, and my name isn't SquarePants.
Lips above the clouds.